Today is Wednesday, July 26th. We'll tell you why the federal government might have to, once again, change up how it handles immigration on the southern border. Also, what to expect today when a former intelligence official and 2 veterans testify about UFOs. Plus, why there are new sort of natural hot tubs off the coast. How American working women are closing the pay gap. And who just signed the richest contract in NBA history despite never winning a championship. Those stories and more news to know in today's episode. Welcome to The Newsworthy. All the day's news in around 10 minutes. Fast, fair, fun, and on the go. I'm Erica Mandy. Thanks so much for being here. You ready? Let's do this. It's another setback for the Biden administration and its new rules for the southern border. A judge struck down the federal government's restrictions on people hoping to seek asylum, saying the latest plan to lower the number of illegal border crossings violates federal law. This is the system that started more than 2 months ago. It basically issues harsher penalties for migrants who cross the U.S.-Mexico border illegally and rewards those who actually schedule appointments to seek asylum. But the judge sided with advocacy groups who say the new restrictions endanger migrants who are already fleeing danger back home. They also say by keeping migrants who cross illegally from seeking asylum, the government is violating U.S. law. And with that, the judge called the restrictions invalid. But the ruling does not take effect right away, so the new border policy will continue for at least the next 2 weeks. And the Biden administration has already moved to appeal, saying lifting the restrictions could lead to a major influx of migrants that could overwhelm the immigration system and cause severe crowding in holding facilities. Last month, the first full month the restrictions were in effect, saw the fewest number of illegal border crossings since President Biden took office. By the way, the Homeland Security Secretary is scheduled to testify before lawmakers today about the current situation on the border, so stay tuned. It seems Russia is building up its ranks to stay in Ukraine for the long haul. Russian lawmakers decided to change the law so more men will be eligible for mandatory military service, increasing the upper age limit. Already under current Russian law, all men ages 18 to 27 must enlist in the military. But this new legislation raises that range to be 18 to 30. They're also banning anyone who's draft eligible from leaving the country. It's not law yet, but is expected to be soon as Russian President Putin is poised to sign it. This comes as Russia has faced deep losses on the battlefield. Some assessments put the number of Russian service members hurt or killed in Ukraine in the hundreds of thousands. On the Ukrainian side, tens of thousands of service members are estimated either killed or hurt, along with thousands of civilians. But Ukraine keeps getting more support, a lot of it from the U.S. Just yesterday, the Pentagon announced another $400 million worth of security assistance for Ukraine. The latest package includes air defense missiles, armored vehicles, and small drones. This is the 43rd security assistance package the U.S. has given Ukraine. The U.S. has sent more than $43 billion worth of aid since Russia's invasion first started 17 months ago. It is officially wildfire season in the western U.S., and there are some especially destructive ones burning right now. For example, what's known as the Golden Fire in southern Oregon. It's been spreading quickly in hot weather with gusty winds, and it's burned dozens of homes already. Hundreds more are threatened. So evacuation orders are now in effect. Authorities think the fire might have started on a private property that's being used to illegally grow drugs, but the exact cause is still under investigation. Meanwhile, the U.S. Forest Service says it is responsible for one of last year's destructive wildfires. An investigation found the fire started from an escaped prescribed burn. Prescribed burns are meant to help clear forest debris, but this one ended up burning more than 60 square miles in New Mexico in April of 2022. And it came after another prescribed burn was apparently responsible for another wildfire that's considered the largest in New Mexico history. Now the Forest Service is doing its own review to figure out how to handle prescribed burns more safely and lower the risk of something like that happening again. On the opposite side of the U.S., some natural hot tubs are popping up. Water temperatures in the bays between the mainland and the Florida Keys were so warm this week that meteorologists say they were among the hottest ocean temperatures ever recorded on Earth. We're talking triple-digit temperatures. Ocean temperature readings have also been breaking records in the North Atlantic and Mediterranean this week. And in many places, the ocean heat is expected to continue through at least September. So there's also an urgent rescue operation underway to save Florida's coral species from extinction. Under these conditions, experts say a mass extinction event could happen in as little as a week. Today, members of Congress are coming face to face with a question alien enthusiasts have been asking for years. Are we really alone out here? Lawmakers are set to hear from 3 witnesses about their experiences with UFOs. The most anticipated testimony is expected from a former American intelligence officer who says the U.S. has recovered intact and partially intact spacecraft of non-human origins. The 2 others are former service members who say they've also spotted UFOs. And they're all preparing to speak directly to the public about their experiences. Now, keep in mind, the initial Pentagon report from a couple of years ago said there was no evidence that linked UFOs to any extraterrestrial life. Either way, the lawmakers leading today's hearings say the point is to pressure federal intelligence officials to release any records they have about possible UFOs so the public can see for themselves. We have much more news for you still ahead. But first, this episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. It is sometimes crazy to me how much conflicting information there is out there, from parenting advice to food and health advice, the list goes on. Maybe it's because I research a lot and gather so much data about pretty much everything, but sometimes all that noise can make me question my own decisions. Ever feel that? Well, therapy has helped me to trust myself and prioritize the things that actually matter to me, even in those moments of doubt, so I can move forward with confidence and excitement in all that I do. If you are thinking about starting therapy, BetterHelp is a great option that is entirely online. It is designed to be convenient, flexible, and fit your schedule. All you do is fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist, and then you can talk with that therapist however you feel most comfortable, messaging, phone, or video. And you can switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Let therapy be your map with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/newsworthy today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, H-E-L-P, betterhelp.com/newsworthy. Okay, now back to the news. The debate over fairness in college admissions could end up back in court soon. The U.S. Education Department has now launched a civil rights investigation into Harvard's policy on legacy admissions. This is on top of civil rights groups already suing Harvard over the policy that gives preferential treatment to children of alumni. The policy has faced growing scrutiny in the face of a U.S. Supreme Court decision to strike down affirmative action, making it illegal to consider race in the admissions process. Well, groups that sued say legacy admissions are pretty much the same since most legacy applicants are white, and this gives them a leg up. Though in the past, supporters of the policy have said it builds an alumni community and encourages donations. For now, Harvard is not saying much about the U.S. Education Department's new investigation, just that it's still figuring out how it's going to keep a diverse campus. And race is not the only factor being called into question. A recent study led by Harvard and Brown researchers found that students from the richest 1% of families are twice as likely to be admitted to elite schools as compared to their lower or middle income counterparts with similar test scores. The researchers examined the 8 Ivy League schools, plus Stanford, Duke, MIT, and the University of Chicago. And even though they don't specifically have policies to admit more wealthy students, researchers say it ends up happening since they're also more likely to come from parents with Ivy League degrees, and they tend to have more athletic and extracurricular activities in their backgrounds that make their applications pop. Less than half of 1% of Americans go to those prestigious private colleges, but their graduates account for more than 10% of Fortune 500 CEOs, a quarter of U.S. senators, half of all Rhodes Scholars, and 3/4 of Supreme Court justices appointed in the last half-century. Well, UPS reached a deal with its union this week, just a few days before hundreds of thousands of workers were planning to walk off the job. And that would have been one of the largest strikes in American history. Union members from around the country still have to sign off on this. But assuming they do, it looks like that strike will be averted. The union says UPS agreed to raises for both full and part-time workers. The deal also ends mandatory overtime on drivers' days off, adds air conditioning to UPS trucks, creates job openings, and more. UPS ships about 24 million packages on an average day. So the retail industry especially is seeing this negotiations breakthrough as a big relief. But other labor negotiations are still deadlocked. Just this week, FedEx pilots rejected a labor deal. Auto workers, airline pilots, and Hollywood writers and actors are also still working on new contract negotiations. One of the biggest names in college basketball survived a life-or-death emergency this week. We're talking about Bronny James, the 18-year-old son of NBA legend LeBron James. He collapsed during a workout with the University of Southern California basketball team. He apparently suffered cardiac arrest, had to be rushed to the hospital, and put in intensive care. James has since been moved out of the ICU, but not much else has been said about his condition. For now, he's still expected to play for USC this season, and then one day for the NBA alongside his famous father. One basketball player just signed the richest contract in NBA history. The Boston Celtics agreed to give Jaylen Brown a 5-year Supermax contract extension. And Brown's agent says it will pay him up to $304 million. Now, it keeps him with the team that drafted him back in 2016 and watched him develop into a 2-time All-Star. It also keeps him and another superstar player, Jason Tatum, together for the foreseeable future, since Tatum signed a 5-year deal in 2020 and is eligible for his own extension next season. They'll both be striving to win their first NBA championship when basketball season kicks off in the fall. All right, now it's time for Work Wednesday, when we break down one interesting career or work-related news story every Wednesday. But first, a quick break to thank our sponsor, AG1. A friend asked me recently if I really drink AG1 as part of my morning routine, since I've been talking about it here on the show. And I was happy to tell her yes, and that I really do reach for my tea or coffee less often because drinking AG1 makes me feel energized and ready to take on the day. I've also noticed improved digestion. If you haven't heard me talk about this yet, AG1 is a foundational nutrition supplement that can replace your multivitamin and probiotic. And it's just in one simple, drinkable habit. 1 scoop of AG1 mixed with water, that's it. I like to put ice and a splash of lemon juice in it, but see what works for you. And it's one of the easiest habits I've started since it makes me feel good overall, and it makes me feel like I'm doing something good for my body. AG1 uses a science-driven formulation of vitamins, probiotics, and whole food-sourced nutrients. So if you're looking for a simpler, effective investment for your health, try AG1 and get 5 free AG1 travel packs and a free 1-year supply of vitamin D with your first purchase. Go to drinkag1.com/newsworthy. That's drinkag1.com/newsworthy. Check it out. Okay, now back to Work Wednesday. So it looks like the pay gap between women and men working full-time in America is now the smallest on record. New data from the U.S. Labor Department shows that for every dollar that men earn, women now earn 84 cents. So yes, there is still a gap, but it's a jump from a decade ago when women earned 78% of men's earnings. And when the U.S. government first began tracking this in 1979, women earned just 62% of what their male peers did for similar roles. So what's driving this change now? The chief economist at ZipRecruiter told CBS News there are several factors, such as women are prioritizing their careers more now than before, and that after the pandemic, women are coming back into the workforce at higher wages. Since, for example, the demand for some traditionally female-dominated jobs like nurse practitioners and pharmacists has surged, resulting in a notable boost in pay. For others, remote work has opened doors, offering more flexibility to more women who historically have handled the lion's share of caretaking. And overall, the gender dynamics of today's workforce and home life are evolving. So experts expect the gender pay gap to continue to shrink. All right, thank you so much for joining us as part of your daily routine. We'll catch you up on more news to know tomorrow. Until then, have a great day.